Hi, guys. I'm Allie. A lot of you know me from Instagram, Facebook, all of our groups. I'm the social media coordinator here at WDW Magazine. You might have noticed we have a very special guest tonight. We have a former Imagineer. We're going to be joined by Brian Collins this evening. He is a columnist for WDW Magazine every month. You might recognize him from his very fun cartoon up here at the top. Brian worked with Imagineering as a show writer for about 4 years. He worked on all three parks that were open at the time, so Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and MGM Studios, which is now Hollywood Studios. He worked on plussing and scripting the staging for the Great Movie Ride. He contributed to the script in Jungle Cruise Q, as well as a variety of spiels in Epcot. So I'm very excited to be joined now by Brian Collins. Welcome, Brian. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, I'm very happy to be here.
We are
to talk to you.
we are. I mean, as you know, we all love Imagineers, and we love having you on the team. And we thought our subscribers would absolutely love to hear more about you and your absolute dream job that was Imagineering. So we've got lots of questions for you. So get ready.
Fire away.
So first thing, let's just start it off. So you are a columnist for WDW Magazine, like I said. Can you tell us a little bit about your cartoon? Let me pull up the cartoon here because it stands out. It's so cute. Two characters in it. So can you tell me a little bit about it?
So in my caricature, it's myself kind of in the sorcerer's outfit with the sorcerer's hat, and I've got Figment looking over my shoulder, and it's just a perfect, I think, image to kind of describe not only me, my column, but exactly what I do. I mean, Sorcerer Mickey is the Imagineers mascot, so that kind of made sense to me. And Figment, first of all, is I think my favorite character anyway, next to Sorcerer Mickey, who used to be my boss. But Figment is definitely, one of my favorite characters. Got to rock the Figment shirt here. And so I wanted to have him looking over my shoulder, with everything I do.
I love that. That's great. And so what is it? Figment is kind of a fan favorite, like a Disney Parks fan favorite. What is it about Figment that you like?
He just encapsulates everything, that we do as Imagineers. One little spark, right? As Marty Sklar used to say. And Tony Baxter, is the one who brought Figment to life. He just encapsulates, creativity and innovation and that childlike curiosity that I think is so important for all of us to have, especially if we're trying to be innovative and creative. So I just love them. And, I got to also, when I was working at WDI at one point, I remember we had to record some of Figment's lines. And the guy that came in that did the voice of Figment, I'll never forget, this guy walked into the studio and he was like really this big, huge, burly guy, looked like a biker, not the kind of person that you want to see in a dark alley. And then he started delivering, his Figment lines, and I was like, whoa, you gotta be kidding me.
No.
And it was just really kind of funny, and one of those moments that I was like, man, this doesn't connect, but it worked.
So the face did not match the voice, is what you're telling me.
Not at all. No.
So Figment is he's eccentric, he's out of the box, he's unique, which kind of sounds like the way you applied to Imagineering. It was
mischievous, yeah.
It was definitely a mischievous way to apply for your dream job. So tell us how you applied to be an Imagineer.
Well, okay, so I had already been working at Disney. So when I first moved up to Orlando to work for Disney, I had been working in Miami before that as a video producer, and I moved up to Orlando, and I thought, I've got like a whole year of experience. They're going to have the keys to the corner office just waiting for me, overlooking the Magic Kingdom. And they're like, not so fast, hotshot. And I got hired by Disney, but I was working. They hired me. My first job was working at the front desk of the Contemporary Resort.
Ooh.
So I was checking in guests and all of that, and my timing was pretty good because it was within about 3 months or so of the studios opening up. So very quickly I was able to kind of start networking within the company, and I started working in the marketing department. I started working for the company newspaper Eyes and Ears, writing stories for them and creating some internal corporate videos. I did like a lot of the grand opening kind of things, and all of that's kind of what eventually led me to Imagineering. But before I was able to get there, I had applied like anyone else, and sent letters and whatever, and actually received probably 2 or 3 different rejection letters. And at one point, they actually had scheduled, an interview for me in Glendale, and were going to fly me out. And like 3 days before, they said, "Oh, sorry, we, something came up. The position was put on hold or whatever," and it fell through. So, I was like really kind of disillusioned at that point. And I was thinking, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I'm going to try something, the act of a desperate man, let's call it. So, and I don't recommend this to anyone else, by the way. And when you hear what I did, y'all understand why. But I went into the theme parks and I bought a pair of like the traditional Mickey Mouse ears, on the black hat. And I ripped off one of those ears. And then I made up a ransom note, and I actually cut like the little letters, individual letters out of a magazine and different, glued them down. And the ransom note said something like, "Want to be an Imagineer, am holding corporate hostage or corporate mascot as hostage, willing to negotiate." And I took that Mickey Mouse ear, I stuck it in an envelope with the ransom note, and I sent it off. And I figured either hopefully the person that gets it is going to find amusement in my twisted sense of humor, or they're going to like be really scared, and I'm going to have people in dark suits and glasses knocking on my door to haul me away. And fortunately, it was the former, not the latter. And they actually was shortly after that I got hired into Imagineering. So
I'm glad whoever opened it had a sense of humor.
Yes.
Because, like you said, it could have gone very badly if it was taken too seriously. But like you do not, as a disclaimer, you do not recommend this in today's climate.
No. I remember when I was in my undergraduate in college, one of our professors told us a story of someone who wanted a job with an advertising agency, and they took one of their like really old beat up sneakers and they stuck it in a shoebox, and they sent it out to the ad agency, and they said something like, "I will walk 1,000,000 miles, to work for you." And that one kind of backfired on them. So, I was well aware.
You were well aware it was a risky move, but obviously
it paid off. Thank goodness. And
so you were able then to land your dream job. And like I said earlier, you worked on many attractions, including 2 fan favorites, Jungle Cruise and the Great Movie Ride, which is just recently replaced with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. What is your favorite project that you have been part of?
Oh my gosh. It's easy really to talk about like those big marquee attractions. The Great Movie Ride certainly was a very special one to work on. Getting to kind of plus that attraction in the scripting and the staging in there was really kind of fantastic. And then being able to kind of go on the ride and ride it with the guests, not only, as I was an Imagineer, but for years afterwards, when I would go back and visit the park, with my family and stuff, um, it was just very, very kind of cool and special to be able to do that. But there were also a lot of just smaller attractions and smaller projects I worked on, and some of them never even really came to be. And one of my recent columns, I talk about some of these. Actually, the most recent one of the projects I mentioned in there was in Pirates of the Caribbean. One time I had submitted some ideas for the queue audio when you're in the queue line walking through the dungeons and stuff, to replace the music with this soundtrack that would have a crusty old pirate in there saying, "All right, mateys, keep it moving. Captain wants to see you down below in the dungeons, and that'll teach you to go against the captain," and all these kind of really fun sayings, and then there'd be dripping water and bats and all these sound effects and stuff. And I just had a lot of fun, doing that. And there were several other little things like that, which really were fun. When you ask me to pick one, it's like, pick your favorite kid. It's like, wow.
I knew that was a dangerous question, because
Yeah.
asking any Disney fan, like, what's your favorite Disney character movie, you can't pick, right?
Yeah.
So, but I kind of wish that they took those ideas.
Yeah.
And I remember you had an idea of Pieces of 8. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that actually, coincidentally, that also has to do with the Pirates of the Caribbean. At one point, they were thinking about putting a little food cart out front, and of course, Disney can't just put like a normal food cart out. It's got to be a themed food cart, right? So they were going to theme this particular food cart like a old stagecoach, maybe, or a wagon that was filled with pirates' booty, that they, like gold doubloons and pearls and jewels and all this stuff.
Right.
So the name that I came up with for the food cart was going to be Pieces of 8, 8 being spelled ATE, right? The double entendre, Pieces of 8, which I thought was really kind of fun.
I think I love that. It's kind of like whenever I am at Disney, I'll see like a pun and I'll be like, why didn't I think of that? So like when you had mentioned Pieces of 8, I'm like, wait, like of course.
Yeah. I also wrote one of the first scripts for the Magic Kingdom, the tour scripts for the Magic Kingdom tour, and that was a lot of fun because I got to do a lot of really in-depth research about the park and about Walt Disney himself, and that was just a really interesting, fascinating project to work on.
When you were doing the research for that, then what like research for, I guess, any project you work on, like, can you explain how in depth and how far back you go for a research project?
So, like when you go to any Walt Disney park and you look at the castle, you'll see a coat of arms on that park, and that's actually the Disney family coat of arms. And I actually went so far to research Walt Disney. Actually, his family emigrated to this country from Ireland. That's what his heritage is, and he was always very, very proud of that. And I actually went so far to contact the chief heralder of Ireland to confirm, because as I was researching, I found that there were 2 lines of the Disney family that emigrated into Ireland, and each one had a separate coat of arms. So I wanted to verify we had the right one. And so I went so far as to reach out to the chief heralder of Ireland to verify that for me. And before I did that, I had to obviously do my homework and research to be able to explain to him about these 2 different lineages and coat of arms and all of that. So it was sometimes research could get really in depth. I mean, it's very, very fascinating and interesting to do, but it could get pretty in depth.
So as an Imagineer, when you do your research, you have to double check, triple check, check again.
Sure.
Because it sounds like
Absolutely.
you did not want to have the wrong crest. You didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
I mean, and you know, I was very fortunate too, because when I was working as an Imagineer, a lot of the older original Imagineers, not a lot actually, not that many, but a few of them were still around. And one of the Disney legends that I got to meet and actually work with a couple times was John Hench. And if you don't know that name, John was a former animator, is where he began his Disney career. And then Walt brought him over to help design first Disneyland, and he actually drew up one of the first master plans with Walt Disney for Disneyland, and had an amazing career, and then came over to Florida and worked on the parks here. But John's particular expertise was in color design. John understood colors like nobody I've ever met, and he understood color theory and that type of thing. And I was actually able to do a walkthrough of the Magic Kingdom, and also later on a walkthrough of Epcot with John. And you know, to be able to do that and hear from him, you know, why decisions were made or how things came about was just fascinating. Amazing.
I think you've got a lot of Disney fans jealous now. You had a personal relationship, and not just a personal like relationship with a Disney legend, but a private tour
Yeah.
of the park. So that's phenomenal.
It's sometimes I think back to some of the people I met and things I got to do, and I still kind of have to pinch myself. I mean, you know, there's the very first time they sent me out to Glendale. Do we have time for another story? Oh.
We've got time.
Okay. The first time they sent me out to Glendale, I went out there. I went out there. I'd been hired on as a new Imagineer, and they sent me out there to kind of see the headquarters in Glendale, and they had set up some meetings for me with different people. Actually, one of the things, I'll kind of go off the track here for a second, and then I'll come back. But one of the reasons they sent me out there is because when I was working in Imagineering, one of my main focuses, I would say my main focus, was really at the time on the Disney MGM Studios, now Hollywood Studios, but back then Disney MGM Studios. And when we still had a working back lot and a shuttle tour, you could take like a tour of our back lot, and we had like residential street, and we had a boneyard with old Disney props in it, and a costume department and stuff like that. So you could see all these actual workings of a working studio, which we were when we first opened. And one of the reasons the interesting meetings they set up for me was the movie Honey, I Blew Up the Baby, which was the sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, had just come out. And actually, it hadn't even come out yet. It was going to be coming out. But my boss said, listen, when you're out there, I want you to go see a screening of the movie and see if there are any interesting props maybe that you could bring back that we could put on display here. So when I got out there, they had done, they were doing at that point probably, if not daily, maybe weekly screenings of the film. Not obviously not for us, but more for the filmmakers.
Right.
And the Disney executives and stuff like that. So they got me into one of these screenings, and it was really interesting because a lot of like the special effects hadn't even been done. So you would get to a scene where, you know, you've got like the giant baby walking through a residential neighborhood, and you would just see like a pencil drawing or a little hand drawn sign that said special effect here, kind of a thing. But one of the things that we found that we actually brought back, and if there's anyone that's watching that, some of you may even remember this, because it would be hard to forget if you ever saw it, but we actually had them ship. This was before CGI effects, so everything was actually done what they call practical. They actually built the giant props and all that stuff. And one of the things was this giant red sneaker, like a Converse sneaker, that was the baby sneakers. He was like walking through the neighborhood, and this thing was probably about 20 feet tall. I don't know. They probably had to break it up into about 4 or 5 pieces to send it to us, and we reassembled it and had this giant sneaker on our back lot, which was very, very funny. I thought. Anyway.
I forgot that at MGM, like when I went as a kid and it was MGM, there was that that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids play area.
Play area, yeah, that was something else. Yeah.
Triggered a memory I didn't even remember I had, but that was the backlot tour. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh
that was the backlot tour.
Yeah. So
you get on the red shuttles.
Yes. Yeah. So we would have seen that big red shoe.
It was either that or another time we had them ship out the Bulldog cap. There's a movie called The Rocketeer.
Okay.
And you can watch it on the Disney Channel now. I think it's on Disney Plus. And one of the iconic buildings in that, which again was just built as a facade, was a restaurant that the characters went into called the Bulldog Cafe. And it was like a little diner, but it was shaped like an actual bulldog. And we had them disassemble that and send that to us and reassemble the Bulldog Cafe on the back lot. So we had all kinds of let me tell you, working as an Imagineer it really had its moments.
You're just like, get in here. Brian, so there a lot of Disney fans, like including myself, we love to hear about like this behind the scenes magic. So could you tell us a little bit about what we were talking about, some hidden Easter eggs or just small details of, let's say, a great movie ride?
Yeah.
Would you have any like small little Easter eggs of?
Oh gosh, I mean, Imagineers love Easter eggs, love a good Easter egg, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, there were a couple really interesting Easter eggs and just interesting things that once you knew about them, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So, for example, like when you were going through the alien scene, right? And on either side, there were a lot of like computer screens, that were just part of the theming, right? Is you're coming up to Ripley, who's hiding, with her flamethrower gun and all of that. They just have like these little computer screens throughout that particular scene. And if you look closely at the wording that was on those screens, it was actually the names of all the Imagineers that had worked on the attraction. So that was really fun. It's not the kind of thing, I mean, it was so darkly lit in there. I mean, for anyone looking at it, it just looked like words, tiny little words. You couldn't make them out. But if the lights came up or if you ever walked through and you looked at it, they were the names of the Imagineers. So that was kind of fun.
That's so were there ever, so I know that in Disneyland, in California, in the Haunted Mansion, ride, when they do the Christmas overlays, the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay, there's this huge Santa list of all these names, and all of those names have special meanings of someone who was part of the attraction at the beginning and working on it now. So were there any other moments like that where you were able to either put like your own personal stamp on it, or like the movie screens or the TV screens in the Alien?
Yeah. I will say, when that happens, most of the time it's done with permission, or it's done, you always want to be very respectful of the show, that you're in the story that you're telling. So it would be very, very difficult for someone to just kind of slip something in unknown. I mean, not to say it hasn't happened, but I'll give you a couple examples. Going back to the studios, you used to be able to do that shuttle tour, right? That would take you through the costuming and the back lot and Catastrophe Canyon and all that stuff. There was also a walking tour. and the walking tour would take you through the sound stages and the audio studios, and then at one point there was like a little makeup area, and at one point they had asked me to kind of freshen up the table that had like makeup props on it. It had like a mask of a head, and makeup bottles and stuff. So I made up a bunch of makeup labels, fake labels for the makeup jars, and all of them had my name as, it was like Collins Makeup Studio or something like that, and things like that. But probably one of the ones that for me I think is the most personal to me was when they were first retheming the queue area for the Jungle Cruise. The show set designer came through the offices, and she said, if any of you guys have any props or anything that you think might, we're going to need a ton of props. If you have anything that you think might fit in there, let me have it, and maybe we'll try and stick them in. So I actually, my dad, who used to be a really heavy pipe smoker, and he had a bunch of like a collection of all of his old pipes. So I asked him, can I get some of your pipes, some of your old pipes? And I picked out maybe a half dozen or so, just really cool looking carved pipes and exotic looking pipes and stuff. And I gave them to her. And as far as I know, I think those did make it into the Jungle Cruise queue. And it's always, for me, whenever I go out there now, it's just my dad since passed away, but it's just kind of a nice little legacy, of him to have a little piece of him in there preserved. So
when we go through the queue, so if we see any kind of pipe, like where is it?
I think that, so there are a couple little show set areas that look like an explorer's office or like a desk or something. So I think they're in one of those. So if you see any like really kind of cool looking pipes with carved heads or anything, yeah.
That's so sweet. And he passed. So,
what's that? Yeah, about 5 years ago.
So that must be so special to visit. And
it's really kind of cool. Yeah.
So
I mean, he obviously he was still very much alive when I was an Imagineer, so
right.
So he knew about that. I don't think he ever really, my parents. You're never a captain on your own ship, right? My parents, they always, I think, got a kick out of it, but it's not like they grew up. They certainly liked Disney and everything, but they weren't like diehard Disney fans. So I don't think they ever really kind of understood really even what I did so much. Oh yeah, it might be you. I wrote jokes for a ride or something. It's like,
right.
And my kids weren't even born when now they're all out of college, so I'm kind of aging myself a little bit. But so they always grew up knowing that Dad was an Imagineer, but they didn't believe half the stuff I told them I did anyway. And then I would say, we'd be standing in line for Jungle Cruise, say, I wrote that, and they'd be like, yeah, sure you did. And then I'd show them a script or something, and be like, oh, okay.
So that's so funny. So on the one hand, your parents didn't really know how big of a deal it was, and then on the other hand, your kids are like, "That's like no way you did that, Dad. Like there's no way." Yeah. That's such a fun balance.
now they're kind of proud of Dad, and they kind of get it now that they're older and everything, especially as they've gone through especially when they went off to college. I mean, here in Orlando, so many people work for Disney and everything. It's not that big a deal to say your dad worked for Disney, or, it's a little bit more unique to say your dad was an Imagineer. But even that, I mean, there's so many of us here. But when they went off to college, and, away from Orlando, and every once in a while they would call me and say, hey, Dad, what's the deal? What are you talking about? It's like, well, I was talking to some friends, and I mentioned that you're an Imagineer, and they just like freaked out. And it's like, well, I tried to tell you all those years, but you wouldn't listen to me.
That would be my party trick. I'd be like,
It's
yeah, that my dad's an Imagineer. Like, whatever. That would be
it,
how I make friends.
it's honestly, I mean, it's like it's very humbling and all that. I mean, I've never really kind of you know grown up. I certainly didn't make a big deal out of it to them. I'm very I feel very fortunate and lucky and humbled to have had that part of my life, and it's been a lot of fun. Now that I'm you know doing my own consulting work and everything, it's a lot of fun to be able to look back at that and to still use all of that that I took from Imagineering and be able to still use it in my career. So it's fun.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you gained a lot from Imagineering and that you're able now to teach and share all of that learning. So you were saying you work in education. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. I mean, in a couple different levels, I guess I've worked in education. I was actually many years ago. I was a founder of the Central Florida STEM Education Council, and that was really a satisfying effort to be a part of. And then I've gone on to teach several college courses as an adjunct professor at a lot of different colleges and universities. I've spoken at a lot of different schools. Right now, I'm actually working on some workshops for McGill University up in Canada. But
That's so here. Yeah.
what's that?
I know McGill. That's
Yeah.
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 Cool.
So, but I've also been an adjunct professor at the University of Central Florida here, UCF, Go Knights. And I've taught courses in theme park design and development. So I've taught courses in product development for theme parks, which is basically how you come up with ideas for the rides and the attractions. And I taught another course in innovation, technology and innovation. So yeah, it's great.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
when your students, let's say, come to you and say, Brian, how do I become an Imagineer?
Yeah.
So
The $1 million question.
we already know what not to do, but
Yeah.
if there's an aspiring Disney Imagineer out there, what kind of advice would you give them? Work experience, application, schooling, research-wise, like what would you tell someone?
I think there are a couple different things. One is, first of all, don't go to school to become an Imagineer. Go to school to learn your craft and do what you're passionate about, right? There's the old saying that if you have a job you love to do, you're never going to work a day in your life. And I think that's the most important thing is, do something that you're passionate about. If you decide that Imagineering is something that you want to pursue, there are a couple of different things you can do. One is the college program at Disney. The college program, it's one of those things where people either love it or they hate it, to be honest, because you're not going to, you can be, let's say, a finance major or a hospitality major, and the chances are you're going to be working in a merchandise shop or scooping ice cream or doing any one of these million of entry-level jobs. You're not really going to be working in your field, but what it does do is it gives you the chance to network within the company and to learn the company. When I first started at the Contemporary, looking back now, it's probably one of the best places I could have begun my career, because that's where I learned about Disney customer service, about their management style, about the Disney culture, all of that stuff that served me well later on, right? And then the other part of what they do in the college program is that they do arrange for meet and greets with Disney executives, and they give you the opportunity where they'll set up tours to take the college program students to different tours of different areas to learn about different parts of the company. So it gives you a lot of exposure and things like that. But you're not going to be going there if you're a finance major, and you're not going to be really crunching numbers per se. That being said, I do know several people who've gone through the program, and they've leveraged the connections they've made to come back later and get jobs as engineers or accountants or whatever it may be, hotel managers,
Right.
things like that.
So
So that would be one.
So someone is to accept the entry-level job of selling churros, even if
Yeah,
it is below you, is what you're saying.
exactly. Yeah, pay your dues, basically.
Exactly. And that's a great point to like learn the Disney culture, because how else would you learn it by being immersed right into
Right.
like, the heart of it? So that's
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I'd recommend is once you get into college, Disney every year has the Imaginations competition, which is a competition that is hosted by Disney Imagineering, by Walt Disney Imagineering, and they put a challenge out there, and you can put together a team of, I think it's 4 or 6 people, something like that, and you come up with a whole solution to whatever it may be. Um, and you present those, and then the final, I think, 4 or 6 teams are actually invited out to Glendale to present in front of the Imagineers. And a lot of the people on the winning team actually wind up with either internships, or some of them have gotten job offers straight out.
wow.
So yeah, so that's a real. Actually, this last year, the winning team was a group of 4 naval cadets from Annapolis. So the team from Annapolis, now they're gonna, if they got any job offers, they're gonna have to put it off for a few years while they serve their country
Right.
after graduation. But I thought that was just fantastic. So
That's
yeah,
outstanding.
yeah,
That's some great advice. So
yeah.
Disney College program, Disney, and what's good about the Disney College program is that there's a Disney International College program too, so
Yes,
it's accessible to people from all over the world. So I know a big roadblock for some people when they want to do Imagineering is like, well, I can't work in the States, but that's a great idea and like a way, a foot in the door, like you said.
yeah,
So that's fantastic advice. Um, I love that. So
yeah.
before we get to our last question, if anybody watching right now has some questions for Brian, just add them into the comments and we'll definitely get to them, because obviously we all know Imagineering is something that Disney fans love to hear about, love to talk about. So we have an Imagineer with us. Ask your question. But so this is my personal question to Brian.
Yes.
This is something I think about and all the time, like for myself. But if you could choose, so which Disney movie do you believe deserves an attraction, and how do you imagine that?
Ooh, that is a great question. I've actually thought a little bit about that before. The first one that went, the first one that comes to mind would be Coco.
Coco.
I think Coco would be awesome, but I have heard rumors, and I'm not, I'm certainly not offering because I don't have any connections inside of Imagineering or anything. But I have heard murmurs that they're looking at maybe in Mexico, possibly turning that ride into a Coco themed attraction, which would be really nice. That'd be fun. Um, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, obviously, which would be fun, or Honey, I Flipped the Baby. I always thought Who Framed Roger Rabbit would make a fantastic attraction. There's so much you could do with that. So much you could do with it.
So
Yeah. Almost like if you've been on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Express, I would almost envision a Roger Rabbit attraction being something like that. With a blend of real life and simulation. The technology, I think, has gotten to the point where they could just create a spectacular ride from Roger Rabbit. Um, and the other one I think would be really cool for them to do. there's so many wonderful classic Disney animated films out there that never really kind of had any kind of like major feature, shows and stuff, but like Aladdin and Hercules and Pocahontas and Tangled and Brave and Mulan. So maybe doing some kind of an attraction where they feature a variety of those classic Disney films might be really kind of fun too.
I think what I loved about the Wreck-It Ralph is in that scene when they brought all of the princesses together. So kind of like what you're saying is like if they kind of found a way to make this big collaboration, like no one saw all those princesses coming together, right? Like no one
Yeah.
coming. So in the same way you're saying, like, what if we all brought all the nostalgia together? That idea. Someone in the comments said, what about Zootopia and Animal Kingdom? That would be very cool. Like a full Zootopia land.
Zootopia would be fun.
We had a question earlier. It was from a subscriber, and they said, what would have been something you would have liked to work on? So a new project, an old project, what would be something that you would have been really interested to be part of?
Rise of the Resistance for sure would have just been amazing to work on. I think when I think about the technology that the Imagineers have at their hands today that we didn't have back then, it kind of makes me jealous. And fortunately, I've been able to kind of stay, like I said, in the themed entertainment industry all my career, one way or another. So I've been able to work on other projects in for other parks and stuff. But to be able to kind of use some of those tools to bring Disney attractions to life would be fantastic.
So
Rise, yeah.
So anything. So basically, you would do anything with the new technology. Is what you're saying.
The thing I love about Rise of the Resistance, and I know it's got its troubles and its technological glitches, but I don't think you can push the envelope as far as they have. I mean, when you go, the one time I went on it, I mean, it worked perfectly, and it's just a wonderful immersive experience. I mean, you're moving from ride vehicle to ride vehicle. You're, going into these sets with these full-size images of, and animatronics. And I mean, they just threw everything but the kitchen sink at you.
Yeah, that's true.
So to be able to kind of bring that kind of level of entertainment to our guests, for me, would be that would be. I mean, I think the Great Movie Ride did a pretty good job of that too, in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's amazing. So those doesn't think we have any new questions from our audience, but we had one more question from earlier, which was, "What is your favorite attraction?"
What is my favorite attraction? Oh my gosh! Again, it's like pick your favorite kid. I love the classic dark rides, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean, and certainly the Jungle Cruise. I was gonna. I didn't get a chance to finish my story before, but when I was in Glendale, I'll make this a little bit quick. But when I was in Glendale, I walked into the offices there to kind of check in on my first day and meet some people for some appointments. And I noticed that there was like a little art display in the lobby, and I couldn't really tell exactly what it was. And I was kind of busy, kind of going on with my day. And over the next few days, every time I would go in or out of the building, I'd say to myself, I need to stop and go check that out and see what this is. And finally, it got to be my last day, and I was like leaving, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna leave here without going to see what it was. It just looked like a really interesting little art exhibit. And I got over there, and there were about like 3 rows of hand-drawn artwork, and it was all of Mark Davis's hand-drawn conceptual artwork that he had done for the Jungle Cruise and the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm sitting there like looking at this, and I went to like the backside of one of the displays, and there was an older gentleman and his wife standing there looking at the stuff too. And he turned around and goes, "What do you think about this stuff?" And it was Mark Davis and his wife Alice. And I just about dropped my teeth. I'm like, yeah, I think I said something like, I think it's okay, Mark. I think you did pretty good with it. And he just kind of chuckled and was really nice, introduced me to his wife, like he had to. I mean, I knew who she was.
Yeah.
She's a Disney legend in her own right.
Wow.
And to me, that's probably one of the most special moments I have from my days of Imagineering, because, I mean, here I was 20-something years old, a fresh new Imagineer, getting to meet, the legendary Mark Davis,
That's amazing.
looking at his own sketches,
Yeah.
and his wife, and being able to just kind of talk to him as a colleague,
Right.
was just kind of mind-blowing. So
That is so cool. And it sounded like you played it pretty cool. I don't know if I could have.
it was pretty neat.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for sharing all of these stories with us and spending your time with us. If anyone would like to find Brian on social media, you can find him on Instagram at Being Creative. That's spelled BEINGCRE8VE. He also has 2 Facebook groups.
Yep.
So can you tell us where to find you?
On Facebook, you can join my larger group. It's called the Mouse and the Imagineer. And I have another group. If you're an educator, it's called Educators Who Love Disney. And that focuses on a lot of great educational content. And we try and share, tips and tricks for teaching and things like that. So, yeah, the Mouse and the Imagineer and Educators Who Love Disney.
And I'll make sure to include those links as well. And Brian also has a personal website. So if you wanted to share that with us, we can also check you out there.
Yep, wdwithme.com, WDWITHME, wdwithme.com. And I was just telling Allie before, I literally just redid my website, and I think it looks great. But just today, as we're speaking, I switched over from my old servers to the new servers, so it might be another couple of days before you're able to log on and see my content. Bad timing for me, but but bookmark it, wdwithme.com, and there's information if you want to do a tour of the theme parks or have dinner with an Imagineer. You can sign up for that. So I'll give myself a shameless plug. And
thank you.
Yeah, and find me on LinkedIn too. You can just look for Brian Collins Orlando. So
it's all of the social platforms.
Yeah, I like to be liked. I like to be followed, not in a creepy kind of way.
Right. Right. Appropriately only.
Yeah, appropriately, yes.
Thank you so much again, Brian.
Thank you.
I'm sure we will speak to you soon.
Yeah, and look for my column.